A mother warned officers about violent father before tragedy. Wasn't enough, apparently. For Atlanta Black Star, police in Minnesota have launched an investigation after 8-year-old Amir Harden, that's that picture, was fatally shot by his father, 30-year-old Danair Harden. Little boy, little Amir, he's a hero. After attempting to protect his mother, Cherish Edwards, during a violent altercation in their home, June 5th. Beautiful boy. Edwards explained on GoFundMe and to local news that Danair Harden was trying to shoot and kill her during the dispute, but accidentally shot their young son. Amir tried wrestling the gun out of his father's hand, Edwards wrote on the fundraising page. I screamed for him to leave and go to the neighbors. He refused and said, Mommy, I'm not leaving you here. His father shot himself in the head after accidentally shooting Amir. Edwards said that Amir's dad turned the gun on himself in front of Amir's 4 siblings. He and Amir were taken to a local hospital. Amir suffered injuries to his head and neck, died a few days after the shooting. Harden remains hospitalized in critical condition. His 4 siblings witnessed this tragic event, Edwards wrote on the GoFundMe page. My kids are traumatized and probably will need therapy for the rest of their lives. Just one day before the shooting, Harden was in court to face assault charges in connection to a domestic dispute that happened on May 30th. That day, Edwards called police after Harden allegedly choked her when she told him she wanted to end their 10-year relationship. According to the Star Tribune, she told officers that other domestic disputes between her and Harden had taken place several times in the past, and she was concerned an assault would happen again, according to court documents. She also warned police that he had a permit to carry a gun, almost always carried one with him. Harden was booked into jail on the morning of June 5th. The judge set his bail at $4,000. Ordered him to stay away from Edwards' apartment, have no contact with her, turn over all of his firearms to law enforcement. He was released later that afternoon. Amir was shot that night. I don't take it seriously. Police spokesperson said charges against Harden will be considered if he survives his injuries. The guilt I feel, that bullet was for me and not my child, Edwards told KSTP5 News. Fundraiser Edwards started for Amir's funeral expenses has raised more than $18,346, exceeding its $10,000 goal. Edwards wrote on the GoFundMe, I don't want him to be forgotten. He was only 8 and he had so much potential. He was going to be somebody. Now I'll never know. Amir was somebody, braver than the coward that shot him. But I want to talk about the system, Jackson. You know, there's always these so-called experts, these guardians, those GALs, these court officials, these people who swear a woman who's not sporting a cut lip and a black eye in that moment must be lying. They start actually these courts with a premise that she's lying. Now you prove to me that you're not. They're wrong. They don't have a bit of expertise in what domestic violence is, what stalking is, how it increases over the years, and how narcissists, which I suspect Senior was, in this case, the father, can appear completely okay to regular people, which is why looking under the hood, gathering evidence, and really seeing them for who they are is important. But still, we do things like hit a violent, many times over, soon to be accused killer with a $4,000 bond in the morning. And now his son is dead by nightfall. What say you?
This is definitely a reflection of the system. And not only in that women's abuse in relationship situations isn't taken seriously enough, but also just, the general idea that if you don't have money and resources, you can't really afford justice. You can't really afford to gather evidence necessarily that you might have to. I've seen stories of, let's say, somebody poisoning someone's coffee every morning, and they have to actually get video evidence of this happening. Then they have to test it with these, like they have to get so much evidence
Thank
before
you.
the police can actually do something.
Mhm.
So much evidence, often that's really not possible to get, if you don't actually record somebody punching you, it's just not easy to get it. And then if you do have it, well, maybe that's still not enough. What are you really going to do?
Not
So and you're right about people who have certain types of personality disorders. That doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, but it can make it such that the outside world just generally doesn't know who you are outside of what you want them to
yeah.
see. And
And
then under the hood,
perhaps, yeah, the outside world doesn't want to see it too often. And I'll say this, even when you do record it, some of these court officials are so lazy and arrogant that they won't even consider it. And we've had cases right here where they haven't fully considered or even acknowledged the evidence. I, though, tend to believe, and I do and have had an up close front seat, in all my years living and being an investigative journalist, Black women who tend to just figure it out and do what they have to do to survive and be strong and have a mouth like mine are even more difficult for some of these fools in the system to believe. Because you can't possibly have a mind of your own, resourcefulness, the wherewithal, be incredibly bright and outspoken, and be a victim of domestic abuse. Just can't possibly be. They're not trained, they're not well thought of, and they must do better. This boy should be alive, Jackson.
absolutely. And it's not as if he wasn't in jail the day before that. It's not.
That morning.
Yeah, literally that morning. And then he came and took the life of his own child. And then out of shame shot himself because he realized what he did, which is
Coward.
definitely a good indication of narcissism. Like, oh, I can't let the, you know what I mean? So, but just this is a tragic, this is tragic. There's nothing good to say about this whatsoever. And another example of Americans and our love of guns.
Love of guns. I want this mother to know the bullet. There's only one person who was directing this. Bullets have no names. And the man who's in critical condition, who may face charges if he survives, is the only person. That in society and the court systems, but not this mother, not her children left behind. Her son died a hero, already a better man than his daddy.